So, let's see. All right. So, like I said, this is all. It's the first time doing the YouTube, so there may be a few kinks here and there. Bear with me if you don't mind. So, I am. I'm used to the Instagram. Been doing that for about 6 months. So, but without further ado, welcome to the Thursday Night Live Chat. First time on YouTube, first time at 8 p.m. Central Time. So this is the new time, so I hope you're used to it already. So, first things first. Topic tonight is going to be the problem with our politics. It's not going to, obviously, it's going to deal with politics, but we've got some real issues that we need to sort of work out, and I'm going to give you something that I wasn't able to do on Instagram, which I am really going to enjoy doing on YouTube, is actually giving you graphics and information using slides and stuff. So that's going to be a lot of fun to be able to utilize. So, all right. So let's begin the evening. Now, I don't know if you know this, but we are working on our first documentary. It is, we can just say it's done. It is completed. I think we pretty much just completed it yesterday. And when I say we, I mean me and my good friend Jared Trapp, who is business owner with Bass Trap Media, which is a small company that I own. So this documentary is on a World War II veteran. We interviewed him end of last year, September, I want to say, towards the end of last year. And he was 100 years old at the time. And we're so very close to having it done. And if you pay attention, if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, you'll see that he actually passed away just a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, before he was able to see the documentary. But his daughter, Vicky, and his granddaughter, Angela, who were massive help, they were a massive help with shooting the documentary and getting everything for us to do everything. We are going to be able to present that to them. So we're very excited about that. We really like how this has come together. And I think you're really going to enjoy that. You know what? Let me go ahead, since I'm gonna give it a little time for people to join in on the show. I'm going to go ahead and play this quick trailer that we have of Mr. Khalil, the World War II documentary. So I'm going to play this real quick, and I trust that you will thoroughly enjoy it.
My name is George Khalil. I was drafted in the Army in 1941, which I was just made 21. And they sent me a letter, and I got drafted. I took my examination the same day. The same day at 3 o'clock, they told me to be on that train going to San Antonio. And so I did.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that trailer. We're probably going to put another one out here in the future. We'll just say that. Now, as you all know, as has been the case for quite a while, my good friend Jay Rofrich, who is the owner of Good Books in the Woods, he sponsors the Thursday night show. If you haven't yet, go to his website at goodbooksinthewoods.com. And that's where you need to start maybe ordering some of your books. Not all of them, but some of them. Maybe give Amazon and Barnes & Noble and those types a rest. And go check out my good friend Jay. And here's the really cool thing, is you can get 10% off of your book order. Doesn't matter how many books you purchase. Doesn't matter how many times you use it. 10% off when you use the code HISTORY, HISTORY. So use the passcode, the coupon code, whatever you want to call it, HISTORY, and get 10% off your order over at Good Books in the Woods. So check them out, goodbooksinthewoods.com. And also, he told me to let you know, just in case you are in the greater Houston area, that you can actually go by and purchase it. It's not just an online thing. You can go into the bookstore here in the Woodlands and you can make your purchase and just tell them that you listen to the Sons of History show, and you can get 10% off your books. Look, if you like books, obviously go. But also, if you like hard to find antique books, if you're a book collector, definitely you want to go check the place out. And tell them I went and I sent you over there. Tell them I personally sent you over there. So anyways, all right, so we're going to get right to the conversation. The Democrat and Republican divide over the years. Now, Pew Research put out an article in 2014 that stated this. This is what it says. It says, the overall share of Americans who express consistently conservative or consistently liberal opinions has doubled over the past 2 decades, from 10% to 21%. And ideological thinking is now much more closely aligned with partisanship than in the past. As a result, ideological overlap between the two parties has diminished. The ideological overlap, that would be a good thing. It says today, and this is 2014, today 92% of Republicans are to the right of the median Democrat, and 94% of Democrats are to the left of the median Republican. And so that is a real cause for concern. I got this graphic I want to show you. I just want to make sure that I have it here. Let's see. Now that would be hilarious if that's the one that I didn't put on. And let's see. Yeah, it just might be. So I'll need to add that on real quick. So let's see here. There we go. Beautiful. Now I want you to check out this, because you probably have seen this before. This graphic, and it's not real graphic, but you've probably seen this graphic before. Check this out. This sort of lets you know how the divide has increased over the past 20 years. It gives you a real good visual. And this means that we really are not seeing eye to eye on a ton of issues. That means that we are completely ideologically driven in a lot of areas. When we are not even meeting up with the median Republicans or the median Democrats. So yeah, take a look at that, and it should be a little concerning to everyone involved. So I'm going to show you 2020 in a minute, but that's 2014, right? The issue with politics today is that your beliefs are often placed on your party. That's a real concern. Your beliefs are now being placed on your party affiliation rather than on your upbringing, or rather than on your religion or your personal beliefs, right? It's being placed on, you've all heard it. When you say that, you feel a certain way or you believe a certain way, someone will say, oh, you must be a Republican or you must be a Democrat, and that's not good, especially if that is true. Because if you believe a certain way strictly because this is the conservative viewpoint or the Republican viewpoint, or it's strictly because it's the Democrat viewpoint, or even strictly if it's because it's the Libertarian viewpoint, I know that's a much smaller party, but still, it's still ideologically driven, right? And there's not anything. Ideology has gotten a really bad, I guess, reputation. But we all have ideologies that we sort of pander after to an extent, right? Whether it's social issues or whether it's economical issues, the ideologies behind some of those things, and not that on its face is terrible or bad, but it should not be. Your party affiliation should not be the basis of what your entire existence is all about. Your entire belief system. That is a very unstable ground to be standing on. Here's in a simple phrase, it's become party over principles. There's a lot of people who don't really know why they stand for something, and so, but they know that their party does stand for it. Like, that's a talking point. That's a political talking point. So, like, well, I've got this massive group that I'm able to get in line with, and so what do I got to fear? I can have actually somebody else smarter than me give you a reason why I feel a certain way or why I believe a certain way. That's not good, because somebody shouldn't be. It's one of those things like when you're growing up and your parents say, okay, this is how you're going to behave, and you're going to do this because this reason, and this reason. Or they just say, I'm the mom, I'm the dad, whatever, and you're going to just listen. So no reason at all. Well, we are at the point that our parents are not going to be, answering for us or explaining why we act a certain way or do a certain thing. Therefore, in the same vein, your political affiliation should not be the explanatory method that people go to find out exactly why you believe a certain way or why you are a certain way. I'll give you a brief example of something that I sort of experienced this week. So there's this great book. It's very short. It's called An Intelligent Person's Guide to Philosophy by Sir Roger Scruton. Sir Roger Scruton actually passed away, I want to say about a year and a half ago. But this is a great book. It's very short. I think we all like short books. And it gives you a breakdown on sort of postmodernism and everything like that. And that's all fine and dandy. But the issue was that I posted up a section in our Instagram story for the Sons of History. Posted up a clip. I'll show it to you. Let me show you. So this right here is a piece that I thought was, man, it's really powerful. It's really good. I'll read it to you. The Czech philosopher T.G. Masaryk ascribed many of the ills of the modern world to half education. Now, I think that's something that we are dealing with right now as half-educated people. And I think we all, in some instance, in numerous instances, we're half-educated or not educated or quarter-educated. And that's one of those things. But he says it was the prominence of public life of the semi-educated, he suggested, that stirred up the hopes and destroyed the certainties of mankind. All faith was cast into doubt, all morality relativized, and all simple contentment destroyed by the sarcastic criticism of those who could see just so far as to question the foundations of social order, but not so far as to uphold them, right? So that's not a political statement. And yet the responses that I got were political. And I find that the response was not about education, it was not about faith, it was not about morality or social order, which is what this piece was more or less talking about. It was about politics, and not just the politics of the day, which would have been towards the turn of the 20th century. No, this was about modern politics and how and why that came into the conversation. I don't really know. Um, but that's sort of where we are, where everything that is maybe brought to the forefront, that may be a really good talking point, is somehow put on the political soapbox. The real issue, this is the real issue. We are missing out on powerful statements like the one Masaryk put together, which would lead to really engaging conversations about the world and what is actually wrong with it. Instead, we get caught up in statements like, oh yeah, well, maybe if conservatives would just, or if liberals, they should just. We get to the point where everything is being turned toward the politics of the day. That is the real issue. It's not, okay, what's the core problem? What is the core problem? What's the core problem with current social order or morality or education? What is it? Now, if politics has something to do with it, okay, bring that up. But we've got to get out of this mode of saying, well, you only believe that way because you're this party affiliation. Or, well, everything is based on what the party is, the conflict, the clash of parties. We dumb down ever so quickly a conversation that should be enlightening to whoever is involved, like the one that I had. And yet, for some reason, it doesn't. You eliminate the ability to have an engaging conversation when you strictly put it on politics. Here's the thing. Here's a warning. If our politics continue to overtake our views, then we will only see everything, education, faith, morality, social order, whatever, through the lens of politics, that singular lens. Now, there are a lot of people out there who see life through a singular lens. Just one thing. And that lens eventually becomes a vacuum for everything. Everything gets sucked in there. All their views, their beliefs, actions, inactions, and not just their personal, views and, beliefs and actions and inactions, but those of other people. Everything gets sucked in to left or right politics. And that's how they're seeing stuff. Doing this makes logic incompatible with many of life's scenarios, if not all of them. So we have to really think about why, whenever we start trying to pull in politics into a conversation, think like, why is my initial knee-jerk reaction to go after their political affiliation? Or why is it that my excuse for viewing things a certain way is strictly for my party affiliation? Like, well, I'm a Republican, or I'm a Democrat, or I'm a Libertarian, so that's just, no, we've got to get out of that view. This is called not being able to get out of your way. When you have this singular lens and you create that vacuum, that mental vacuum. So what we're doing is we're building our own box. So if you're a conservative, liberal, libertarian, you are suddenly restricted to a box, and a lot of times that box is built by you. Okay? A lot of times I find myself, it's built by me. Like, why am I thinking like this? Why am I doing that? So to an extent, connecting with a political perspective has made it easy to establish one's life. I mean, plain and simple. Like, it has simplified our ability to think. And why is that? It's called GroupThink. That's what it's called. And so wherever the group goes, there goes you, or there goes I, right? and it is easier because we have a lot of people thinking for us. Like, oh, well, they're a really smart talking head, so I'll just go with whatever it is that they're saying. Look, I do the same thing as far as listening to what individuals have to say. That's how we learn. We do it. We're a history show, right? So if you're not paying attention to what the smart people, or even the careless, stupid, crazy people did back in the day, then you're going to be not very well off, right? What I am saying is this, is that whether smart, whether Aristotle or Plato or Churchill or Malcolm X or Martin Luther King or whatever it is, whoever you want to put in there, or the really terrible people who were just like all about power and control. Whenever you have them thinking strictly for you and you're not saying, okay, why did this person say this? Or why did they think like this? Why did Frederick Hayek, why did he put this book together, The Road to Serfdom, right? Something like that. Like, why is this? If we're not thinking things through, then we are really doing a disservice to ourselves, and we're putting ourselves behind a really screwy 8-ball. So I have numerous beliefs that stem from my Christian faith and my obedience to the Bible. Now, that is the basis, the foundation of my belief system. Everything else is built upon that. Okay, but not everything is answered by my faith or the Bible, right? Like there are some questions, via economics, that I have a hard time. Like I don't know how I would answer that via my religious views or religious beliefs, right? There's some questions out there that maybe you can't answer from there, but you do have the foundational principles of what makes you who you are, that you're able to make your decisions. You're able to base your decisions on that. So what becomes upsetting is when someone, and sort of referencing what happened earlier this week, is when someone, whether I know that person or not, assesses, and I've had friends do this, assess my belief system according to my political affiliation. And it's really just insulting, if you will. And the thing is I know that I do the same thing, and I can't be doing that, right? Because that eliminates the conversation that needs to be had. If all of a sudden this individual says they feel or believe a certain way, and I know that they are of a certain political affiliation, and I either insult them or I just cut them off the conversation altogether, where is that getting us as a society? You're not going to be able to get to the bottom of things. And the thing is, to an extent, I can see that when people do that to me, that they are reflecting. Their views stem only from their political affiliation. And at the same time, it is a mirror that has to come up to me and be like, Dustin, is this how you're thinking as well? So if the party agrees or disagrees, then I must adhere accordingly? No. There's a price to be paid, and there is a price to be paid for not adhering. Understand that. When you break away from that groupthink, from that party affiliation with everything that goes along with it, there is a price to be paid, and it's called being shunned, possibly, okay? Pinpointed for not going along, for questioning what the group is doing. That's a scary thing for a lot of people. It's something that makes me think as well. But can't I think on my own? Can't we all think on our own? We've got to. I think that is where we are definitely losing ourselves as a society and a nation. And I think it stems, I talk about the education system a lot, right? We really aren't pushing kids to think critically, to think for themselves. It is sort of this whole idea of memorization and, don't really think about it. Let's dumb down the education. Like, no, education needs to be pretty difficult. Now, listen. Politics, going back to politics has its place. It definitely does, obviously. The whole world is more or less run on politics. But it's through politics that things either get fixed or broken, or they remain fixed or they remain broken. And politics, because politics is where the power lies. That's where power lies. But it is through the power of politics and not so much through party power that issues actually get resolved or not. Let me repeat that. It is through the power of politics and not so much through party power that issues get resolved or not. And I'll explain why. With mere political power, through party affiliation, even that which seems to get fixed is only held together by temporary power. We see it all the time, and not through anything true that actually has holding power. It has to be one of those things that this makes sense because of A, B, C, D, E, and F, or just A, right? But it's true. We can't do this because it will lead to this. It can't be, we can't do this or we must do this because we are now in power. And we can't go along with our parties and say, well, I voted for that party, so if they're doing it, I got to be on board. No, it is okay to talk bad about, your party's politics or their decision, your president or your senator or your congressman, whatever, a congresswoman, or your mayor. So these are things that we have to do. Now, I promised you that I would bring up the Pew Research from 2020. So I want you to take a look at this November 2020 graphic. Let's pull that up. Let's see here. Where are we? Nope. And boom. There we go. So I'm going to pull this up real quick for you. The distrust according to political party, right? So this was, shortly before the election was over, and both parties felt almost unanimously that the country would be worse off if the opposing party's candidate won. That's where we are. It's sort of this no hope scenario. And that is having a detrimental effect on our ability to have a conversation with each other. What does that do? That ends up making us want to blame the other party, or the Republicans to blame Democrats, or Democrats to blame Republicans, right? And if you're already entering into a conversation with somebody thinking this person's part of the problem of why our country is like it is, well, are you really going to be able to have a conversation with that person? Are you really going to be part of the healing process of whatever is supposed to be happening in this country? No, it can't happen. It can't happen if you think to an extent that they are sort of your political enemy. We're Americans. That is one of the things that George Washington stated in his farewell address. Like, Americans, like, if you're here, if you're a citizen of this country, you're American. You're not, party affiliation or, whatever social affiliation or socioeconomic affiliation. No, you're American, just across the board. And we've got to get to that. We've got to get to that. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to have the conversations that we need to have. We're not going to be able to bridge any divide or anything along those lines. And I've referenced a number of times, written articles about it, the Spanish Civil War. This is very similar as far as the way that a lot of people feel towards people in the opposing party. It is almost retaliation. There's such an anger between people of the two parties, and they could be family members. That's not good. We gotta. If you've not read about the Spanish Civil War, you need to check that out and see how every 2 years the other side ended up winning, and it turned into a very, very violent, obviously resulted in the Spanish Civil War of 36 to 39. But there was a precursor of a number of years of politics, people winning, people losing, and that's where some of the violence had already started, and then it really escalated. We don't need that. But we're already in that process. Maybe I need to go over that again one more time, because that may be a good idea, and just sort of create this parallel between us and the Spanish Civil War and what led up to the Spanish Civil War, because you've already got violence from both sides happening, right? So, not good. Now, I wanted to bring this up as well. I'm going to get rid of this graphic real quick. So, I'm going to bring up this real quick. This the response to the pandemic, right? This was interesting. This is a number of countries, but look at America. So the Trump administration, and this is I found interesting. The Trump administration orchestrated Operation Warp Speed, right, to create a vaccine in record time. It did so. Even when, he was saying we'll have it by the end of the year, even I was like, I don't think so. To an extent, I was like, I hope not, because it seems like rushed, it seemed a little rushed, especially when you call it Operation Warp Speed. Anyways, but this response was not good enough, according to Democrats. Obviously, only 29% supported. Now, there were obviously other issues that people had issues with, but to an extent, it's like a lot of Democrats wanted unilateral power to be forced across the board, like shut the country down across the board. And that would have been a real overreach, a precedent that does not need to be set. There's a reason why we have the federal government. It's a federal system, and we've got 50 republics. That was, the founding fathers said, we promise each state will have a republican form of government. So the governors are able to take care of their states, right? That's the idea behind it. It would have been unconstitutional, and it would have been a complete overreach of unilateral power. I remember listening to a podcast on We the People, which is a really good podcast, and there were two law professors on there, and both of them were more or less talking about how concerned they were in certain areas about certain areas of the world where these presidents or presidents, or I don't even say kings, because a king is pretty much dictatorial power, but they started becoming dictators. They took advantage of the pandemic situation, and they grabbed that as much power as they possibly could, right? That's a real concern, and they should have been concerned. During that same conversation, I actually wrote an article about that in the Epoch Times, also on the Spanish Civil War, so you can go check that out. But they were talking about how they were almost upset. They were disappointed that President Trump had not taken more power, made unilateral decisions. And I was thinking, well, the Democrat Party or the left had been continually saying for 4 years that Trump was a dictator. That's up for debate, whatever. That's not the point. The point is to have spent, up until that time, 3 years calling President Trump a dictator, and then in the same vein or in the same conversation asking that, or demanding almost to an extent, or being bewildered by him not taking more power. This would have been an opportunity for a major power grab, and he didn't do it, right? So with that, it's one of those things like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But this is not an anomaly as far as just people not if you're a Republican or a Democrat, or if you live in another country and there's multiple parties and the opposing party administration is in office, you just, a lot of times you don't like what they're doing because they don't line up with your politics, if you will. Well, ours is really polarized. 29 to 76. It's pretty large. And I can only imagine what it is now with the Biden administration from a Republican Democrat perspective on Republicans not being a big fan of how Biden's doing his thing, right? So, but I wanted to show that despite the fact that the vaccine was put together in record time, he did not do a power grab. It's the response still wasn't good enough. Okay, we can have an argument on why that's the case, whatever. But this is just a case in point. Now, Thomas Carruthers and Andrew O'Donoghue did a study. They conducted a study on American polarization. The results of the study were published by Foreign Affairs. Now, according to the authors, Americans have a quote-unquote powerful alignment of ideology, race, and religion. That's true, unquote. They said that it is hard to find another example of polarization in the world that, quote, fuses all three major types of identity divisions in a similar way. So, yes, ideology, race, and religion play a massive role in all of our lives and how we do things. It is the way it is. Unfortunately, all three of those things are sinking in under, to an extent, and I don't mean to come across super harsh, but to an extent, the religion of politics, of party politics, right? To an extent, the Democrat Party or the Republican Party has become people's religion. I don't know. And that's not good. That is exactly where you don't want to be. Because when people start coming up against your religion party, the results are not great. So, but I do say this. I say stick to your beliefs. Understand yourself and why you believe what you believe. We got to do that. We got to study ourselves. That doesn't mean accept your religion or your upbringing carte blanche without question. Okay? I grew up Christian. I grew up in a Christian home, pastor's home. And you know what? I still, to this day, I still question, what I as far as like, okay, do I believe this correctly? Or have I viewed it the wrong way my entire life? So you have to question those things. Your upbringing, okay? Maybe if you're going to eventually have kids, maybe ask, okay, would I do this? Am I going to do this or whatever? So here's the thing. These are the issues that affect your daily life. They affect your daily life and your eternal soul. So you probably need to get those figured out. So in much the same way, don't let the politics of the day or your political party dictate your views of everything. Don't let it do it. Just say no, like Nancy Reagan used to say. So Americans overall, here's what I want to end on. Americans overall do want what is best for each other from a political perspective. Look at that. This was before the election was over. 86% of Republicans or Trump supporters said that whoever wins, if Biden wins, they hope that, let's see, Trump, Biden supporters say their candidate should address concerns of all Americans if they win, right? And the Biden supporters, 89% of them felt that way. 86 to 89. It's very close. This is pretty much the same, right? And that's good. That's good to know that Americans actually do want, in a majority of everybody, they do want what is best for each other. And we've got to all feel that way. But our politics, when spoken through media and even in social media, will say otherwise. You're not going to get a lot of that. You're not going to get 86, 89% actually care about each other. No, you're going to get, we hate each other, we can't stand each other. You will find out that is not true most of the time. Give each other a chance. Republicans give Democrats a chance. Democrats give Republicans a chance. Yeah, there's going to be some stuff that we may never ever agree on. We may never ever, change each other's minds, but there is a chance. There is a chance for that. There is a chance to be convinced of something that maybe you've seen something one way, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, yeah, you bring up a really good point. But you can't do it. You cannot do it. It will not be done if you abide strictly by your party. If you are controlled, if you have made your party, your religion, your entire life, and whatever the party says, that's what I got to do. The divide, according to media and social media, what you see all the time, the divide must continue. And the best way to continue the divide is to label each other according to political affiliation. Look, I'm not saying get rid of the R and the D and different stuff like that. I'm not going that far. But don't let the R or the D or the L be the only thing you see when you see that person. Let's have some conversations. Let's have hard conversations. That shouldn't be too difficult. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the Thursday night show. I hope you enjoyed it. Had a few kinks, little whatever. I think somebody had actually gotten on. We had it live for about 30 minutes. Had no idea we were testing out the lights and everything like that. Thank you, Jared Trapp, for helping me out. But once again, Good Books in the Woods, sponsor of the Thursday night show. If you haven't gone over there, check it out, goodbooksinthewoods.com. If you live in the greater Houston area, go over to Good Books in the Woods, in the Woodlands. It's a really cool place. Say hello to my friend Jay. He is the owner of The Biz. And